Okay.
Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Kupichana Balaba Girivaradhari Kupichana Balaba Girivaradhari Yashodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Brahmanande Hari Hari Bo.
Gurudev, can you make me co-host so I can set
Okay, you
these?
can control my camera. Oh, Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sanyavari Paschatya Dasatarine. We are going to continue reading about Srila Prabhupada from the Tributes book. I don't know if I have enough chosen for today, but let's see how far we get. Krishna, this is a quote from Srila Prabhupada, Krishna will accept a devotee who strictly follows the regulative principles and chants 16 rounds a day. Is it regulative or regulative? Some devotees say. In South Africa, they say regulative. Tanya, can you look it up on Google and they have a pronunciation? I always say regulative. Regulative, I don't know, maybe it's both. Krishna will accept a devotee who strictly follows the regulative principles and chants 16 rounds a day. You also state, quote, there are bona fide instructions, and if this method is strictly followed, the followers will ultimately reach the destination by the grace of the Lord. This method is called Acharya Sampradaya. The Acharya Sampradaya is strictly bona fide, unquote. Another quote. Whatever a pure devotee wants from his master, Lord Krishna, doubtlessly grants, because he has no duty other than to fulfill the desire of his devotee. Sometimes, I'll say, pray to Krishna, he'll fulfill your desire, then I'll get a letter the next day. I've been praying for 20 years and nothing's happening. How do we understand that? Sometimes Krishna wants to see if you're actually qualified for that desire to be fulfilled. And as we know, sometimes Krishna knows that that desire would not be healthy for you, or maybe it's healthy, but he doesn't want to grant it so easily, or maybe he wants you to cry more. Okay, what's the conclusion? Tanya, did you come up with what is it?
It's both, actually.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm glad it's both. That way I'm still right. That's what I thought. Like we say candidate and candidate. It depends on what part of the universe you live in. Or in London, it depends on what block you live in. So yeah, that's okay. Okay. So how do we understand what we would have to do if Krishna is not fulfilling a desire? Well, sometimes we may think maybe I shouldn't desire that. He doesn't want it. He's not fulfilling it. It's not for me. That's one thought. Maybe I'm not sincerely asking for it. That's another thought. Maybe I'm not qualified for it. Maybe I should be asking for something else. Just the other day, a man wrote me and he said, I want to get married, but it's not happening. Then he was just describing a little bit about himself. And I said, well, I don't think you're actually ready to be married. And that's why Krishna is not providing someone. It's kind of like saying, I'm praying that I can become a PhD. Well, are you going to college? No. So, and Krishna is going to fulfill that desire and you don't even go to college. Like the joke we've told before, the man is praying, God, please help me win the lottery. And here's a voice, God speaking, buy a lottery ticket. So sometimes our prayers are like that. So, and Prabhupada said, first deserve, then desire. So sometimes we may pray for something that is so far beyond our qualification that Krishna is, he's putting it on the calendar. Okay, that prayer will be fulfilled maybe October 13th, 2075 or something like that. You're not ready for it. So, and just because he hasn't fulfilled it doesn't mean he won't, but it may be that it's not the right time for us. Or as we said, maybe it's just not what we should be asking for. And personally, I always feel that if the desire is not being fulfilled, that I need more qualification and I need more intensity of the meditation. And that's become more of a priority. Because just if you're a parent and your kids say, I'd like this, especially if it's difficult or expensive, they're not really pushing it. You don't really do anything because it doesn't seem that important. Can we go to India? And then they don't ask for 3 months. It's just like, I guess, that was just kind of a whimsy. But, I want to go to India. I want to go to school in India. I hate America. I have to go to school in Gurukula. I hate it. I just want to be a brahmachari. And like every day they're saying that. Then the parents will start seriously thinking, maybe we should take him to Mayapur or her. So, Krishna is the supreme parent. So that's another thing we can consider. Am I qualified? Do I really want it? And if Krishna fulfills this desire, can I handle it? That's another thing to consider. Maybe I can't handle it. There's another thing came up today or yesterday. Oh yeah. The devotee was praying to Krishna. Oh yeah, this is interesting. He was praying to Krishna. He said, I've been praying and Krishna's not fulfilling my desire. I think sometimes what happens is we're praying for levels of purity that can only be achieved through sadhana. At least, we can pray, of course, get mercy, there's no question, but also it may require strong sadhana. And maybe we should be praying not to remove the anartha as much as to give me strength to do the sadhana that could remove the anartha. But we don't pray like that. We just pray to remove the anartha, and then Krishna doesn't pray. It doesn't reciprocate because we have to actually do enough as well. So like Krishna can give me the mentality that I can do better sadhana. That's probably a better prayer. But anyway, this devotee said he was frustrated and he gave up. So I said, you wanted Krishna to fulfill a desire that I guess you felt you deserved. And then he doesn't fulfill it. And you say, okay, Krishna, that's it. It's over. Relationship's finished, So like that's, it's not good. The attitude of a devotee is like the chakora bird who only takes water from the rain cloud. It's actually a thunderbird. It only takes water from the rain cloud. So if I can't get mercy from Krishna, then, I'll just keep my head up waiting for the cloud. And so, if Krishna doesn't fulfill a desire, we should always understand there's a reason and a good one and try to understand what the reason is and then make adjustments. And I always think it's just become more qualified. That's how I think. He's not fulfilling this because if he did, I would make a mess of it. Oh, Krishna, give me $1 billion. Yeah, what would you do with $1 billion? We'd never see you again. We find you on the beach in, some island in Greece or something, with a harem of 100 ladies and 25 Ferraris in front of your house. So, no, Prabhu, I would use it to build temples. Yeah, right. After you build up your harem and mansions. Yeah, we've heard that before. We've seen that before. Generally, until you're very advanced, it doesn't work. So, that's the thought that we have to think. Okay, I'm praying. All right, sometimes we pray for things which are beyond our qualification because it's a hope. This is what I want. It's my ultimate goal. I know I'm not qualified. But in that situation, you don't become impatient when Krishna doesn't fulfill it because you know you're not qualified, but you're just praying so you can keep that vision and you can keep that enthusiasm on that goal, which could take you your whole life to reach. So then you wouldn't become discouraged. Another thing we often find when we're not getting a taste, we become discouraged, especially in chanting. It's also another opportunity to show Krishna what you're made of. Are you a man or are you a mouse? I don't know what they say for women. Are you a woman or a female mouse? So, sometimes Krishna may test you to see what you're made of. And, he could say, today, your japa is going to be difficult. I just want to see what you're going to do. If you will go on enthusiastically, even if you don't have a taste, that's beautiful, because we're also selfish. We always want to do things that make us feel good. Will you do service even if it's difficult, even if you're not getting reciprocation at this moment? Because it's what I want you to do. I hope so. Anyway, you can think that sometimes Krishna is testing you by not fulfilling a desire. Okay, now what are you going to do? Go to the GBC and complain, Krishna didn't fulfill my desire, I want my money back. I want my hair back. I shaved it all off and he didn't fulfill my desire. I want my hair back. So sometimes we hear that great devotees put themselves in the position of, I just want to be a slave of Krishna. Of course, the word slave is, has so many horrible connotations. But in the spiritual realm, a slave has the most beautiful connotation. But, our conditioned nature is like, I want Krishna, but I want him on my own terms. Then he may not come on the terms you want him. I see this a lot. Spiritual masters find this, that their disciples instruct them. You do something or tell them something and they say, as a spiritual master, you shouldn't say that. That's not right. It's like, okay. You shouldn't tell me that. That's not right. That's not fair. That's not kind. That's not polite. That's not sensitive. So you have disciples. I mean, it's not just me, it's the disciples. It's funny, isn't it? I thought the guru was supposed to instruct the disciple. I didn't know the disciple was, I didn't know I signed up for that. Now I have hundreds of people instructing me. I didn't know that was what I was getting into. You can't do this and you shouldn't do that. And that's not right. And you shouldn't say that in class, and you shouldn't tell devotees this. And like, really? What if I think it's good for them? No, but they may not be able to take it, so don't say it. So I let them walk off the roof and kill themselves. Don't say anything. So it's just funny, where our world is so centered around ourselves. What makes us feel good, what we want, what we like, what we don't like. It's so much worse than it's ever been. Maybe, I don't know, since the Roman Empire or something, or maybe worse than that. It's just, we're all so consumed with how we feel. And so sometimes we even get upset with Krishna. Why did you do this to me? Why didn't you fulfill this desire? And it's better if we can see everything that's happening as his arrangement for our betterment somehow or other, some karmic reaction we have to go through, something good to make us humble, more tolerant. Do you ever get upset when you're mistreated? Of course. At that point when we're upset, which is natural, what happened to Trinadapi Sunichana? What about that verse? You remember that verse? Yeah, we all remember that verse, except when somebody upsets us. At that moment, we forget it. Otherwise, we remember it. Every morning, we recite it. And of course, it's easy to recite when everything's good. But maybe we could think, these situations, I'm actually supposed to recite the verse in these situations. That's what it's for, It's like we're carrying around a credit card so we can use it when we go shopping. So carry around the garland of Trinadapi Sunichana so you can use it, in those situations where you're being tested. More should think like that. That we need these kinds of things. So, it's just interesting to see people get angry at Krishna, upset with their guru, lose faith. Krishna, you shouldn't do that to me. It's not fair. I'm serving you. What do I get? This is always a liability when you give yourself. Because when you give yourself to someone, in the front, middle, or back of your mind, knowingly or unknowingly, you have expectations. And so there's a possibility that when those expectations are not fulfilled, you could get upset. So you have to be careful. Now, let's see my camera. There's a living entity in my camera that moved itself. That was funny. Oh, moved itself the wrong. Gotta go move itself this way. Did it? This way. Right? Now we're okay. Yeah, so when you give yourself to someone, there's a liability, not that there would be, but there's a potential liability. You think, I've given so much. And then you have somewhere calculated what you should be getting in return, right? You ever give a present, a really nice present to someone, and you're thinking in the back of your mind, on my birthday, I wonder what they're going to give me, because that was a nice present. And you went shopping for 3 days to find it. It's the finest wool from the top of the mountain in Nepal, from the bottom of the neck of the goat, and only the hair right at the bottom of the neck. And it's like $300 sweater. And, it's like, wow, softer than the softest sweater ever made. And your birthday, they give you a pair of socks, $10 socks, and they're not even wool, they're synthetic. So that's a liability when you buy that nice gift, that if you don't get something equal, you could get upset, isn't it? Human nature, we always talk about human nature. Yeah, human nature, that's a big problem, right? That is the problem, human nature. We have spiritual nature won't react that way, human nature will. So when you give yourself, when you surrender, somewhere in the back of your mind, you're not expecting a $10 pair of synthetic socks. You're expecting something special, right? And of course, you often will get something special. But you can't hold Krishna liable. Krishna, look what I've done. And now, you know how many times I ended up in jail in Sankirtan? About this many, right? And I'd never been to jail before. So that was interesting. I become a Hare Krishna devotee and I end up in jail. Krishna, you don't love me. I give my whole life to you, and what do? You put me in jail. Well, that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is, what an honor to serve Krishna and even go to jail for him. Because then, I just want to serve. I'm just your slave. So if going to jail is necessary in your service, hey, then it's my great honor to do it. Why not? That's the other way of seeing it, right? So Krishna, if I'm praying and you don't fulfill it, so be it. That's your desire. I go on anyway. If I'm not getting a taste for the holy name, I go on chanting anyway. It's for your pleasure, not for mine. So this is very important, because we have sometimes crazy expectations of Krishna and Guru or temple residents or GBC or whatever, right? And a lot of those expectations are grounded in the fact that we're giving so much, isn't it? So it's a little bit, it can be dangerous to give so much, because then you'll have on your list, what am I going to get from this, And then it doesn't come. And then what happens? You get upset because you're expecting. But that's why sometimes we say, well, the devotee is, is like slave, because the slave doesn't expect anything. But divine slavery, I just want to serve. So Krishna told the gopis, I can't pay you back. You just have to be satisfied with your seva, right? Your service. So, if you're satisfied with the reciprocation you're getting spiritually, then you wouldn't feel that way. You're supposed to give me this, and this wasn't right, or I sent you a WhatsApp message 2 hours ago and you haven't answered it yet. This is not right. Hare Krishna. You understand what I'm saying, right? I mean, I'm just speaking from my angle of vision because I've seen this too often, and it's dangerous for your spiritual life. Whatever we got from Prabhupada, we just accepted. This is like so valuable. And whatever we didn't get, we didn't get. We didn't think, oh, he owes us. Srila Prabhupada, you owe us. No, we owe you everything. By your sweet will, you come and visit us. By your sweet will, you don't. But we are your devotees. We are here to serve you. That's what it's all about. Hare Krishna. Okay. So he said, whatever a pure devotee wants from his master, Lord Krishna doubtlessly grants, because he has no duty other than to fulfill the desire of his devotee. That's pure devotee. So if you're really upset about your desires not being fulfilled, here's the secret: become a pure devotee, and they will be fulfilled. Of course, by that time, you'll be self-satisfied. So you won't have the problems we just talked about. So he goes on to say, this is from Rupa Vilas Prabhu. I think you have made a similar arrangement with Lord Chaitanya. How can we expect a more merciful arrangement than the method you have prescribed for us? So he's saying that whatever a pure devotee asks from Krishna, he'll definitely fulfill. That's why we say Krishna will fulfill your desires. Disclaimer, if you're a pure devotee. He will fulfill desires of those who are not yet pure devotees, depending on, as we said, depending on the desire and their level of purity. But if you're a pure devotee, yes, it's like Krishna's like a desire tree. Whatever you want, he'll fulfill. And so Rupa Vilas is saying that Krishna has sent somebody who is kind of like, we could say, as Krishna says, the sadhus are in my heart, grashta. I'm captured by them. I'm moved by them. I'm controlled by them. So if Prabhupada asks something of Krishna, Krishna must do it, even if it goes against his own previous policies. But how can I do that? Prabhupada said, we need you to do this for the benefit of these devotees. But it goes against my policy. But I'm asking you. And Krishna says, okay, we'll do it. So we have become followers of that person who Krishna will listen to. And so when that person says, give them mercy or help them in this way, Krishna does it. That's amazing, isn't it? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So if you please Prabhupada, then he puts in a good word for you, and everything is okay. Once the good word is, you know how that works, right? You're having a problem and some big man comes, just let him through. And the people who you were arguing with, they're all like bowing down to you, and you walk through. Have you ever been in a situation like that? I have. Many times. Who are you? What's going on here? No, I'm with it. And then nobody believes you. And then, the boss comes and, why are you harassing him? Sir, sorry, sir. Yeah. Make like a funny Indian movie. Yes, sir, sorry, sir. And then you walk through and look at them going like, of course, we wouldn't do that, but we might feel like that. But so, Jai and Vijay, who are you trying to get into Vaikuntha? And then Krishna comes out and says, why are you bothering them? Oh, we're sorry. Yeah. So that's our hope. Srila Prabhupada is, on our behalf, our advocate with Krishna. And so if we please Prabhupada, then he'll advocate for us. And then everything is good. If we advocate for ourselves, then we have to base everything on our qualification. That's not going to work. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Hmm. Let's read this. Just happened to fall upon this. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya-lila 7, chapter 7, text 12. Quote, the true acharya, the spiritual master of the entire world, must be considered an incarnation of Krishna's mercy. So this devotee, Nandana Das says, you are the combined mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, the most merciful Lord. You have made the world fortunate by engaging your disciples in preaching. You've spread the Sankirtan movement all over the world. It is evident you have been empowered by Lord Krishna. There's no question about it. So a lot of times when we would talk about preaching, sometimes Prabhupada would say something very interesting. Some devotee would say, Prabhupada, I don't want to stay here. I don't want to stay here and manage. I want to preach. And then Prabhupada would say, who said you know how to preach? Something like, who said you could preach? And then Prabhupada would say, I am preaching and you are assisting. So that's a nice humble way to see it. Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Tara Pravartana. Prabhupada has Krishna Shakti. He's the empowered acharya. And we're helping him. That's our credit. Car's driving 100 miles an hour. You're sitting in the back seat. You're also going 100 miles an hour. It's not your car and you're not driving. So Prabhupada's driving and we're just sitting in the car and helping him, maintain the car, keep it going. So the attitude is always to give credit where credit is due. So I think to me, that was a sobering statement. Yeah, how was the class, Prabhu? Oh, yeah, I gave a great class. It was amazing. Everybody liked it. Shine my little badge. We used to do this when we were kids. Shine my badge. I'm like, I'm the man. You be the man, Prabhu. We don't feel like that. We feel like Prabhupada is preaching. Everything I know comes from him. And if I can represent what he's teaching, then he's preaching. And I'm just repeating. I'm just helping. That's my qualification. Otherwise, I don't have any qualification. And of course, it's the only qualification we need is to be a follower. Okay. I'm just looking for the next place I marked in the book. And this is the last place I marked for today. I am, I don't know if I told you, but we're doing a new Brahma Samhita, and I asked the devotee to read the English as well. And he said, that English is, not everyone will understand everything clearly. Why don't you rewrite it? Although not rewrite it, but I'll edit it a little bit. So I talked to some devotees and they said, yeah, because it's going to be heard by both devotees and non-devotees. Even devotees don't understand everything clearly in the Brahma Samhita, rewrite it. So it's quite an absorbing thing. I mean, it's awkward. Try to rewrite it. But the rationale is write it in such a way that it's more clearly understood. So that's what I've been doing in the morning when I should be preparing class, studying this. I'm doing that because it's amazing to do it. So we will have to read and expand what we've read and see where it takes us. So here in this offering is talking about free will and love. And Prabhupada is saying, if you have no free will, then you are a stone. The stone has no free will. You want to be a stone? Then you must, in other words, the argument is, why did Krishna give me free will? Because I misused it. So Prabhupada's saying, so you want to be a stone? Is that it? No free will? And of course, it's kind of a foolish question when you think about it. Why did Krishna give me free will? Oh, you want no free will? You just want to be a stone? Hey, how do you like being told what to do? Is that fun? No free will. We'll just tell you what to do. You have no free will. You have to do exactly what we say. Hey, then you won't get into trouble. What do you think? No, give me free will. I'd rather have free will and get into trouble than no free will, right? Isn't it? Gandhi told the British, they said, you won't be able to rule the country. He said, we want our independence, even if we destroy the country. We just want our independence, so independence it's very valuable, isn't it? Doesn't everybody obviously values their independence, their choice, their opinions, their desires. So that question, it's not a valid question. Why did he give us free will? We wouldn't have, if he didn't, we wouldn't have misused it. No, but you wouldn't want to live without free will. And Krishna would not want you to live without free will, because if you can't choose not to love him, what is the meaning of your love? Right? You want to be a stone, then you must have free will. But don't misuse your free will. But don't try to become stone either. That is not life. And Prabhupada says in another place, similar topic, love is reciprocal, voluntary, good exchange of feeling. Then there is love, not by force. No, Krishna does not want you to become a lover like that. You love me, otherwise I shall kill you. So we don't like the fact that we have free will because we misused it. But if we no longer have free will at this point, how will we get back to Godhead? So that same free will that you misused is your ticket back to Godhead. You just have to use it, right? So you can't, so it's just the same free will that got you here is the same free will that's going to get you out of here. So why wouldn't you want free will? That wouldn't make sense, right? And we have discussed before that from the point of view of tattva or truth, the living entity, the jiva tattva, its nature, of course, eternity, knowledge, and bliss is its nature, but its nature also is, it has free will. So it's inherent within the very essential nature of jiva. So there's no question of not having free will. But the other day I read something very interesting. It's just so interesting. I was reading something about habit, and I forget exactly, I'll have to paraphrase that exactly, but it was saying something like, when you have a habit, and as we know, when we have habits, we become slaves to that habits, you lose your free will. And that habit takes over and controls your life. Isn't that interesting? And so anything we do repeatedly becomes a habit. Now, if it's good habit, we like it to take over. I want this habit. I have a habit of getting my rounds done every morning by 5 a.m. Okay, that's a good habit. Let that habit reign supreme eternally. That's fine. Because that's no problem, because that's what I want. So the problem is when you have a habit and you don't want things, then that habit is actually controlling you. Isn't that interesting? I've become a slave to my habits, and rather than controlling certain aspects of my life, I've totally lost control of them. It's a nice way of looking at habits. Now, anything you do repeatedly becomes a habit. So be careful what you do repeatedly, right? We talked about habits in our japa retreat. We're going to talk about them more in the next one coming up, level 2. And you remember in the japa retreat, I was saying, sometimes when you first put your hands on your beads, there's some kind of reaction. It's an habitual reaction. It's the habits in your body. Like we say, muscle memory, like you haven't ridden a bike in 20 years, but you go get a bike and you just jump on, you can ride it because your muscle remembers it. Emotions are lodged within the body. You touch certain parts of the body, it activates certain emotions where the pain or the happiness was in the event. So interesting. So I thought of habits in terms of sadhana, because sadhana is something we do every day, over and over and over again. So how you do something every day over and over again is how you do it every day. So this one teacher was talking about this, and he said, if you notice when you take a bath how you wash yourself, you'll notice you do it the same way every day. For men, you notice you shave the same way every day. Everything becomes a habit. It's interesting, right? Things we don't know, right? How you get ready, how you brush your teeth, comb your hair. It's like you do it the same way every day because you've done it so long that way. They call it unconscious competence. You were conscious somewhat when you started, like learning to drive, you're very conscious, but after a while, it's completely habitual, subconscious. You can drive and talk and, text, and of course, drive into a telephone pole when you text, but you know what I'm saying? You can do so many things. So sadhana, it's something we do every day. So the good news is, because you do it every day, if you do it well, it will become a habit and you'll automatically do it well. Bad news is, because you do it every day, if you don't do it well, it'll become a habit and automatically you won't do it well. And how do you know? Well, one of the ways well, it's obvious if you're doing it well or not, but another way is that when you put your hands in your beads, do you feel the energy shift up or down? Because if it shifts up, that means you're probably doing well in your japa, and so you're looking forward to chanting well. So you put your hands in your beads, it's like, okay, here we go, it's going to be good. Or you put your hands in your beads, if you have not been chanting well, the energy will shift downwards, it will decrease. There'll be some negativity there. And the negativity will be saying something like, this is going to be difficult. I don't really want to do this. Could say so many things. Why? Because if habitually I'm not chanting well, naturally, it's that whole experience is merged within my subconscious. It's in my they say the body is the mind. My body remembers all the negative experiences. And so physically it reacts. And so you put your hand on your beads and your energy goes up or goes down. Sometimes it's subtle, but you can notice that. So japa is something, what if we're chanting 16 rounds a day? Like, how many things do you do 2 hours a day? The same thing. The exact same thing, 2 hours a day. How many things do we do? I don't think we do anything. Exactly the same 2 hours. Similar maybe, some things work, and this is exactly the same thing. It's one mantra. So it's really an opportunity to instill some really good habits, or the misfortune of instilling bad habits. And they get very deeply ingrained. because it's done every day, right? So it's a thought, but every time you chant, just try to be aware that every round is like it's ingraining a habit, either good or bad or neutral. So it's a interesting thought to meditate on, because you compound it by 16 rounds a day every day. You're really deeply ingraining some habits, isn't it? That's a lot, 2 hours a day. Imagine doing something, practicing piano 2 hours a day. 6 months from now, you're going to be quite good, right? You can play, Beethoven and hold on a conversation, probably. You got so good at it. Yeah. So here's another quote. In Bengali, it is said, if you catch one girl or boy, and then you say, you love me, I got you, you love me. Is it love? You love me, otherwise I will kill you. Is that love? So Krishna does not want to become a lover like that on the point of revolver. Yeah. So also it is with Guru. One time Prabhupada said that one of the great impetuses, is that how you say it? Impetuses? A great impetus, or if not the greatest or foundational impetus for following Krishna consciousness is one's affection for one's Guru, because they do it to satisfy the Guru. So why did Prabhupada say that? He said, I think he said, we use the word thick and thin. It means you're really close with someone. They said, when you're close with your Guru, you want to do your sadhana, keep your vows because of the relationship, because you promised. And so we find, and I think this is statistically proven, that when you dedicate vows to another person, you're more likely to follow them than if you dedicate them to yourself. Because it's easy to give up on yourself because it's only yourself. And most of us don't care that much about ourselves that we don't mind breaking vows we make to ourselves. We care more about breaking vows we make to others. Especially we care more about breaking vows that we make to those that we have the greatest affection towards, right? Isn't it? So Prabhupada said that, yeah, in the same way, if one has great affection for their spiritual master, that becomes very strong impetus to follow their vows. He said, I'm weak, I don't have strength to follow them, but I promised my Guru. So out of my affection for my Guru, he wants me to do this, so I do it. So that's a beautiful thought. And as you know, we've taught a course on vows, which will come out online someday. It's already been recorded and edited. And I guess I have to start working on it. We're also working on the Japa online self-paced course. But in doing that course, I came across a concept, or Krishna revealed a concept. Maybe it's obvious. But some things are obvious. They're so obvious that we don't think about them. Like they're too obvious. They're like our eyelids. We don't see them. But when you think of vows, most vows are relational. You make a vow to a person, isn't it? You don't generally, you can vow to the sky, meaning you vow to God. That's there, but he's a person also. You vow to yourself, you're a person. So who are we making vows to? Somebody. So vows are relational, and good relationships evolve when we promise one another and we follow through on the promises, isn't it? Trust is the foundation of relationship. So Prabhupada's saying, if you want strength to follow your vows, just remember your vows were made to a person. And when you follow those vows, then you are strengthening that relationship, and you're getting inspiration to follow those vows when they're relational and done out of love. Sometimes, as you know, it's difficult to follow vows. The mind and senses pull us away from our commitments. But then we think, no, but this is my relationship with the person that I committed to. And because I value that relationship, I value following the vows. You know, like in marriage, everyone who's married or will be married we'll have a day or an hour or a moment where they just feel like, I quit, I can't do this. Get me out of this relationship. I want to disappear, dig a hole in the ground and never come out. Sometimes it's like that. Have you ever experienced that, Vasika? You don't have to say yes or no, but it happens. If it hasn't happened yet, it may just happen for a moment. Something bad happens, you're like, I can't believe this. But no matter what happens, if you're dutiful, there's like no question. You don't meditate on it. So I feel like that way right now, but I don't entertain that because I'm committed. This is a committed relationship. So we get the power to follow vows when we connect those vows to a relationship and we have affection for the person we made the vows towards. That's where we get strength. I promise you I'll do this, I will. Even though I don't even want to. But I value the relationship and I know these vows are part of that relationship. Does that make sense? I think, like when you don't have a taste yet, then oftentimes to follow the principles of Krishna consciousness, the only impetus becomes your vow, your promise, your relationship to those you promised to, or your relationship with yourself that you promised yourself, or you promised Prabhupada. And there may be no other place to find strength other than that commitment. That's like sometimes it's the only thing you have left to fall back on is that commitment, because you don't want to do it. You ever feel like that? I just don't want to do this. Like you're looking at yourself and you can't find any desire in yourself. I just feel like giving up or going to sleep or whatever, eating a pound of chocolate or, you ever have that feeling? It's like, so what keeps you going in that situation? It's the relationship. Right? Like we see with Prabhupada, and you think like, how was it that Prabhupada did that? That's just like so amazing. He would sacrifice his life. And then we have to say, well, his Guru Maharaj, his love. We could see in Prabhupada's life. Like you can't imagine Prabhupada living his life without fulfilling the order of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta completely. Can you? It's just, isn't it? It's just like you can't, that is Prabhupada. That's who he is. You can't imagine him being somebody else, right? So Prabhupada is coming to America. What's going on there? Where's the empowerment? Where's the energy coming from? The relationship. This is what my Guru Maharaj asked of me, wanted me to do. I'm doing it. But Swamiji, you may die in America, whatever. We're doing it. This is what he wants. That's more important. Dying is not a big thing. But not following his order, that's a big thing. So what would you rather do? Well, I'd rather die following his order than live not, right? Isn't it? Yes? That we see in Prabhupada, for sure. Okay. We have, let's see what we have. I think I just have one more thing to read. This is, I just read this morning. This is from a devotee who joined in Vancouver, Canada, when I was there. So it's kind of nice to read about it because I was there. I'm reading about what he said. I'll just read the whole thing. It's short. In the summer of 1971, when I first met Srila Prabhupada's very sincere disciples in Vancouver, I was so deeply touched to the core of my heart by their complete dedication to his every word. After associating with them for over 6 weeks, I finally decided to also join them to experience for myself some of that same reciprocation of faith and love. And so began my journey of discovery into Srila Prabhupada's inconceivable spiritual opulence. I wanted to learn from every possible source how Srila Prabhupada was transforming so many fortunate souls into his dedicated followers. After poring over 30 or so Back to Godheads, I also found the booklet of his 1969 Vyas Puja. Just a little booklet. 1969, there were maybe 300 devotees in ISKCON, so every devotee got to write an offering to Prabhupada. It's also the first Vyasa Puja book I saw, maybe the first one ever. One offering was from one very sincere American Mataji. Mataji, that's how you say it. Mataji, hey Mataji, hey Mataji, mother, one very sincere mother. In her short yet inspiring offering, she was thanking Srila Prabhupada for all the blessings he had poured on her life. And she concluded by saying an unusual yet quite revealing truth, quote, "And thank you for not cheating us." In her own simple words, she expressed what we all feel, how Srila Prabhupada is the authorized messenger of the most merciful golden avatar. Thus, all of his empowered utterances are the essence of all truth. Guaranteed to propel us all towards the complete realization of our real self in our eternal service connection to the all-attractive Supreme Lord. And we are all still trying to understand the scope and power of such divine transmissions that Srila Prabhupada has been delivering all over the world through his sincere followers. For he has specifically chosen to reveal that purest Gauravani in its most succinct and accessible format for the salvation of mankind. Yes, Srila Prabhupada is the perfect lover of God and the full embodiment of his selfless service, whose miraculous life forever shines as the beacon of hope for the millennia, the golden age of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. So this is, an important point. So we often feel, we live, we know that Prabhupada saved us. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but many, 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 many of the gurus who have come to the West from India were found to be dilly-dallying around with their female disciples. Did you know that? Even the ones you think that were like really pucka. I can't say all of them, but I read an article and it just went down the list of the hanky-panky that went on with a lot of these really renowned gurus. And it turns out that most of them, I don't want to say all of them, but in reading the article, what I remember was, you can't say all because it didn't list all, but I was just shocked to read about ones that I thought were actual sadhus. And so it just made me appreciate Prabhupada even more. That was not a possibility that would ever happen. And we have a guru who's spotless. And there are many gurus that have spots on their record. One of Prabhupada's qualities, which stands out in my mind very clearly, is the fact that he was very, very careful about how to deliver Krishna consciousness, because sometimes cheating happens by people who are not cheaters. They just don't know any better. So they deliver what they think is good, but it's not. Like you see that in allopathic medicine. They're trained in a certain way and their motivations are to help. But the procedures or the medicine they give may turn out to be harmful for their patients. And they didn't know that. Although some doctors do know that. They take the time to understand, or they understand alternative protocols, and they understand it is harmful. So you could say, oh, this doctor's a cheater. In the broadest sense, you can say, yes, I was cheated by him, although that wasn't his intention. So I'm not saying that everyone is a conscious cheater. Some are not, but they lacked a proper succession or the ability to deliver purely. And so what we see with Prabhupada, he was extremely, maybe more concerned about delivering things purely than anything else. Extremely concerned about it. So I asked one of Prabhupada's servants, Shruti Kirti, I said, of all the things that worried Prabhupada or concerned him, what would you say concerned him the most? And he would say, deviation from philosophical Siddhanta, from philosophical, not representing the philosophy clearly, deviating from that. Because once you deviate, you contaminate, and then the potency of the knowledge is lost. So Prabhupada was extremely concerned about not cheating us by preserving and then delivering the message as it is without any adulteration. It goes so far, and this almost sounds even almost fanatical, but it goes so far that if there was some bhajan sung or some kirtan, but it was not, something like made up or something that is not within traditional Gaudiya Vaishnava kirtan, he would just say, don't sing that. Why are you singing that? That is not bona fide, even though it might be bona fide per se. It was just names. Well, I'm just singing names of Krishna. Prabhupada might say, there no acharyas have sung that, don't sing it. Or you might say, the Sahajiyas sing this, don't sing it, even though we don't want connection with them. So he was actually quite restrictive in how we do kirtan and what we sing, much more than most devotees know. But that was part of, you could say, Prabhupada's persona or profile, which was to preserve it, so when we get it, the medicine is still active. And if you study Prabhupada's life and you look at it through that lens, you will see he was always concerned about deviation. He would stop this, stop that, don't do this, don't wear this, don't chant this, don't read this. And you might think, well, that was just for young devotees. Now we're older, we can do all of that. Not exactly. Maybe we can read some other things, but in general, I was quite careful, I mean, we're not talking specifics here. We're not debating, can we read this or that or do this or that? But I'm saying it's a general principle. He was very concerned about maintaining the Siddhanta is exactly as it was given. And there's so much speculation that goes on in Gaudiya Vaishnavism and subtle nuances about so many things. And Prabhupada, was often asked about those. And he just like this. Who told you it was like that? Where did you learn that? That's nonsense. Who told you to chant that? Where did just get really upset? There's a story. I think this kind of will illustrate it more clearly. There's two stories. One in which a devotee was leading kirtan, and Prabhupada heard the kirtan, and he was singing, before each mantra, he would sing Bolo. Bolo, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Bolo, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Bolo, Hare Krishna. And then apparently another time someone was singing Bhaja, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And, they either were just spontaneously doing that or picked it up. In fact, one time, Prabhupada stopped the kirtan. He said, why are you chanting that? So I got it from, so where'd you get it from? Radha Kundis? No, I got it from another devotee, another ISKCON devotee, who probably got it somewhere else or just spontaneously was doing it. So I don't think most devotees in ISKCON, if they heard a Bolo Hare Krishna, Bhaja Hare Krishna, would even bat an eye or even notice. And Prabhupada was so upset. He said, chant the Hare Krishna mantras Mahaprabhu gave us, don't add anything to it. You might be thinking, well, it's not like Bolo, it's just, Bolo means chant. It's not like, why would that be wrong? Or, ooh, Hare Krishna. Sometimes you hear this. We're being musical, right? So we're doing our music and then someone will sing, whoa, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's, we don't think anything of it. Or we think, oh, that's nice. It's got a lot of soul. And Prabhupada, stop it. He stopped kirtan. Actually, twice he stopped the kirtan. Once was Bhaja, Hare Krishna, once was Bolo. Stop, he sent someone to stop the kirtan. That's pretty heavy, isn't it? Stop. You think, okay, just let it go. We'll talk to them later. Stop it. So my point again is that Prabhupada was really, really careful about what he gave us. He didn't want to cheat us. Isn't that interesting? Like how concerned he was to just give us the pure thing, because the pure thing is what works. Obviously also concerned that there would be deviation. And it was just, how deviation works? I don't know if you notice this, but deviation works incrementally. Because if we're walking and I take one slight step off, so it starts going off, you don't even notice it. It's too small. So as I'm going, one small step, you don't notice these steps. But to go from here to here, you'd notice it. But here, you don't notice it. So if you talk to Prabhupada's disciples and, ask them, well, how is ISKCON different? And they can tell you many things. And they say, how did that happen? And say, well, so-and-so came back and started preaching this or leading kirtan like this way. And then people started copying, and then it went more in that direction and more in that direction, because that's the nature of deviation. It happens. Something's introduced new, and then it incrementally increases, and nobody really notices it. It's just 10 years later, it's like, well, what happened to the old this or the old kirtan this? In this case, kirtan. What happened to it? Why are we having half hour of kirtan and only 3 minutes of Hare Krishna and 27 minutes of everything else? What happened? Well, it started as a Nitai Gaur, and then it went to a Jai this, and then it went to this and that way it just didn't have any time to chant Hare Krishna. Too many other things to chant. And you don't even notice it, because the people who notice it are the older devotees. who were there before it started. So there's sometimes questions that Prabhupada would be asked about kirtan. Is it okay to chant this, or is it okay to chant that? And he said, it's okay, but why do it? Just chant Hare Krishna. That was usually his answer. Yes, is it okay to chant Nitai Gaur? Yeah, of course. But why? What for? Why not just chant Hare Krishna? We're talking about a temple, all the devotees, it's time for kirtan. So his mood was like that, yeah, you can, but then if we introduce it and we say it's okay, then everyone's going to be chanting Nitai Gaur, Jai this, Jai that, and, Hare Krishna will get 3 minutes out of 27, out of 30, right? So Prabhupada's point was, then I'll give you another, this is an interesting story. You may have thought of this, maybe you've heard this story. The devotee asked Prabhupada and said, isn't the Panchatattva more powerful than the Mahamantra? And Prabhupada said, yes, because in chanting the Mahamantra, there are 10 offenses, but in chanting the Panchatattva Mahamantra, there are no offenses. So it's more powerful because you're just getting the pure names of the Panchatattva without offense. So one time the devotee said, well, why don't we just chant japa? Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvaita Gadadhar. Wouldn't that be more potent? So Prabhupada said, previously, as we're saying, he said, it's more powerful, it is more potent. So then logically, if that's true, devotees are thinking, why don't we just chant that? Or in kirtan, why don't we mainly chant that? And Prabhupada said, and this is another important point of showing how Prabhupada was maintaining a tradition and Siddhanta. He said, because Lord Chaitanya said to chant Hare Krishna. So we could, intellectually determine that chanting the Panchatattva mantra is better because there's no offense, it's more powerful. And so we're not denying that it's not more powerful and there's no offense made when chanting it. We're just denying that we should chant it because, as Prabhupada said, Lord Chaitanya said chant Hare Krishna. That's why we do it. That's if anyone ever asks you this question, why don't we chant other the names of Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, they're more powerful because they told us to chant Hare Krishna. Right? It's like saying, I just want Prabhupada and I don't want to accept any guru. Okay, fine. But Prabhupada says in the Gita, you need to accept a guru. So how you get around that? So Mahaprabhu said to chant Hare Krishna, so that's what we do. So it's another example of Prabhupada being very careful about how he was training us and what he was giving us. So not that Prabhupada was fanatical, but he wanted us to keep it simple because really all we need to do is chant Hare Krishna anyway. But also because Prabhupada knows our tendency is to always do something new and change things. So he was careful about it, right? Cautious. And Prabhupada said there's a Bengali saying, he said, the saying goes something like, whatever you do, even if you walk on your hands, just do something new. Like walking on your hands is not practical, right? But it's new. So do it because, the value is in not what you're doing, but that it's new. As long as it's new, it's valuable, change. So Prabhupada said, your Western disease is you always want to change everything. So he was, he was concerned that we would change things. He said, my big worry is you would change the standards of deity worship. And that's very fixed. This is a process which is not subject to much adjustment. No interpretation, or a little. Obviously, you have to try to understand, but it's not something that, every 10 years you rewrite. You can adjust according to necessity or ability. So he said, my big worry is that after I go, you'll change the deity worship, change my books, these things that probably we didn't know that we would change, and then Prabhupada would say, why did you change that? We thought it was better. He said, no, it's worse. Said, your disease changed it. You always want to change everything. Your American disease. So he was really the protector of Siddhanta, the protector of principles. That was one of his Prabhupada's main jobs in reading his books. You can see he's delivering Siddhanta. This is, some people say this, but the actual truth is this. The Acharya is supported with these quotes. Here's a verse. Here's this purport. That's how he presented Krishna consciousness. So we can be innovative for sure. And we use our intelligence how to spread Krishna consciousness, but we have to be careful that basic principles are never changed, that nothing is watered down, that we don't just create something that's not standardized. And so we can appreciate Prabhupada as the person who didn't cheat us because he maintained Siddhanta. There's the prayer to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and in the prayer it says, Namaste Gauravani Simurti Rupanuga Vrirudapa Siddhanta Dvanta Harine. And it means that he didn't tolerate any statement that was against the conclusions of Rupa Goswami. So if someone said something which was apasiddhantic, against the Siddhanta, the absolute proper understanding of Shastra, he would defeat them. Of course, Mayavad, but other things. He would defeat them. He wouldn't tolerate it. And so, because Prabhupada was following in his footsteps, he wouldn't tolerate it. You may know the story that in Los Angeles, maybe it was 1975 or 76, there were a group of devotees who would meet every day to hear and chant. And solely they were meeting to hear and chant about Krishna's leelas with the gopis. And the devotees started thinking, this is kind of strange. That's all they're hearing. And they said, well, Prabhupada said it's the highest leela and it's most purifying to hear. But that was never a practice that Prabhupada had recommended. So the leaders thought it was weird and they brought it to Prabhupada and he broke it up. He said, you should hear all the Bhagavatam. This is not proper. And you're not, it basically was saying, you're not really qualified to do this, and this is not going to help you. And instead of becoming purified, you'll become putrefied. Because you're not on that level where you can just hear about the intimate leelas of the gopis. But you should read all the Bhagavatam. And then from Prabhupada's experience, he said that if we started doing that, people would stop going out on Sankirtan and just do that. So he said that allowing this to go on would destroy the preaching. Which is interesting because nobody imagined it that way. They just thought it was improper. And Prabhupada saw that, a little deviation here or there, and then the next thing you know, we give up preaching and we're just, Gopi Bhav. We're just relishing, artificially relishing Gopi Bhav. And then Prabhupada said, relishing Gopi Bhav and getting women pregnant. That's what will go on, because that's what happens in Radhakund. Big sadhu and, many girlfriends pregnant now. So, Hare Krishna. So these were Prabhupada's concerns. So let's see if you have any comments or questions. How much should we tolerate a difficult situation where we know Krishna is testing our strength for developing more patience and tolerance? Is there a limit for it? Or should we try as much as we can to get over the test? Yeah, the limit would be that it's unhealthy. And of course, everybody has different levels of tolerance. So if you're trying to tolerate something and you can't tolerate it, you may explode. That's one thing. But in other words, let's say there's something that you should tolerate, and it can be tolerated, but at the present moment, you're not able to tolerate it. You've tried. So you'll have to make some adjustment because it could backfire and you could explode and say or do things eventually that you shouldn't have. So that's one scenario. Another scenario is where it's a situation where you could tolerate it, but it would be unhealthy to tolerate it. Like, I'll give a weird example, but like, I have to go to the toilet. I can tolerate it, but it's not healthy. You should go. But I could tolerate it. Don't tolerate it. Just go. It's not healthy to hold it in. At least I think, according to Chanakya Pandit, when in doubt, don't, except when you have to go to the toilet. I think that's how it goes. So now, this is the best thing you learned in class all day, right? Isn't it? So then you have a situation in which nobody should tolerate because it's not healthy. So then tolerating would not serve the purpose for which we tolerate. It would actually work against you. And it would be a sign of maybe foolishness rather than a spiritual strength. It's like, I just cut my finger off. Go to the hospital, get it sewn up. No, I'll just tolerate it. No, go to the hospital, get it sewn up. You're going to lose it. If I lose it, it's Krishna's mercy. So then philosophy becomes foolishness. Right? Let's just go to the hospital, get it stitched up. You need that finger, right? Is your service to type? Yeah, it is, Prabhu. All right, let's save that finger. Well, if Krishna wants, he'll heal it. Yeah, well, he wants you to go to the hospital and get it healed. How about that one? So, no, just tolerate. It's right there in the Gita, Titikshava. Just tolerate. Yeah. And I'm not going to tolerate your stupidity. We're going to the hospital. So sometimes, you have to see if the tolerance is actually a sign of foolishness, or you have to see if the tolerance is actually destructive to you. It could be physically, like some devotees, they go for weeks and weeks and weeks and they don't get enough sleep. And one day their body falls apart and they're like sick for 3 weeks. And then they catch up on their sleep that they missed, right? So it all kind of balances out. So that would be foolish like that. No, I know I'm tired, but I'll just tolerate it. Yeah, of course. But if it's avoidable, then you don't have to tolerate it. You just get enough rest, and then you won't, crash into anybody when you drive and fall over during class. And I remember I used to go on Sankirtan, and of course, as a bona fide brahmachari, we would sleep too little and eat too much. So when it came time to go out in Sankirtan, we were like, seeing doubles. You know that feeling, You're so tired and you're so full of halava. It's like, where am I? Who am I? So I'd go out on Sankirtan, and, distribute so many books, whatever. So then I decided, when I'm tired, I just don't do well in Sankirtan. Don't do well basically in anything when you're tired. So I thought, let me just take like a nap, like maybe a half hour or something in the van before I go out. And so I took the nap, and then usually I would do similar amounts of books in 4 hours. That took 6 hours because I wasn't tired, right? So I could tolerate the sleepiness. I'm standing, excuse me, sir. I've seen devotees do that. Excuse me, sir. So just go take rest. Why would you tolerate that? You can distribute more books if you're awake, energized. So tolerance, which becomes an impediment, or tolerance in which you are being harmed, then that's different. It may not be advisable to tolerate that, but you'll have to see. You'll have to make those decisions in every situation. Sometimes you tolerate because there's nothing else you can do. There's no solution. That's the only solution. Can't change anything. Sometimes you don't tolerate because even though you should, you don't, because you don't want what happened to you to happen to someone else. And so you try to resolve it, right? So you may bring up the issue of how you were mistreated. So the person who mistreated you is corrected, so he doesn't do it, or she doesn't do it to somebody else. So that is my answer for that. In Krishna consciousness, it's from Kamalakshmi Radhika. Krishna consciousness, we learn to give all credit to Krishna. But when we talk about self-esteem, we also learn that we need to be able to accept a compliment. How can we do both? Or is it even possible? Yeah. Okay. Well, a nice way to accept a compliment is just to think whatever compliment I'm getting, I have to become that way. And the person's telling me. Like someone says, Kamala Radhika, you're so intelligent. And you think, yeah, I need to become intelligent now. Oh, you're so humble. I need to become humble. They're just telling you what you need to become. That was what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said. The other way is if they say something and you can't really artificially deny it because it's true, like Black Kirtan was amazing. Well, it was. Everybody was in ecstasy. But I don't think it was me. I think that was Krishna. So I don't take the credit for myself. That class was amazing. Yeah, Krishna's mercy. So you take it like that. Okay, now we have a great question that could get me in all kinds of trouble if I actually answer it. Okay. What do you think of mantra festivals or concerts where devotees sing bhajans with names like Shiva, Ganesh to non-devotees? They chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra as well, mostly at the end. Can it be treated as a method of preaching? This is difficult to answer because you will get different answers from different people. Now, I have never chanted mantras to Lord Shiva or Ganesh because Prabhupada didn't. So but then I understand, maybe if we don't chant mantras to Lord Shiva and Ganesh, then maybe people are going to think we're Hare Krishna fanatics. Maybe, maybe not. That's something we have to deeply look at. Now, the devotee might say, well, when we chant to Lord Shiva, we're actually seeing him as a Vaishnava, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, the greatest Vaishnava. So I'm singing to Lord Shiva and praying to him for pure bhakti. Even to Ganesh, please remove the obstacles to bhakti. So that I understand that could be a consideration. It's just, we always have to consider doing something that Prabhupada didn't do. If we should go ahead and do it, he didn't do it, and weigh the pros and cons. It is definitely I'm inclined against it personally. And you will probably not see me in this lifetime ever chanting to Lord Shiva or Ganesh. Not that I don't respect them. Lord Shiva is partially Krishna. How could we not respect him? But it's because Prabhupada didn't do that. So I'm a little reluctant because he didn't do it. And, it's a personal decision the kirtan leaders will have to make according to time, place, and circumstance. But I tend to look for alternatives. It's like, so there's a big kirtan, right? There's going to be like 10,000 people and they're inviting you. And they say, but you have to chant one Shiva bhajan and one Ganesh bhajan, or, and you can chant Hare Krishna also. All right, okay. Then maybe I would, for like 3 minutes and then Hare Krishna kirtan for a half hour, something like that. So there, Prabhupada was also practical. He would, make some adjustments according to time, place. If there were big opportunities, he could make that. So, sometimes he wouldn't, because Prabhupada might, or you might feel personally, even though there's 10,000 people, I don't feel right chanting to Lord Shiva, because Prabhupada didn't do it, so I don't want to do it. And so, it's going to have to be a decision you make. Okay, we can end here. Thank you very much. We're going to get ready for Yapa, as they say in Mexico. Yapa. Yai Prabhupada. Time to chant Yapa.
Gurudev, I'm not host, so can you stop the live stream?